Most guys hit 40 and suddenly it feels like everything that used to work stops working. You're training hard and you're eating right, but somehow the muscle just isn't showing up like it used to. And the truth is, that part actually does make sense because whether you realize it or not, your body has changed. Testosterone isn't as high as it used to be, your muscles aren't responding to protein or training the way they once did, and small mistakes you used to get away with are now costing you real progress. But here's the good news. Building muscle after 40 is 100% possible. In fact, there are plenty of studies showing that you can build just as much muscle in your 40s as you did in your 20s. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why muscle growth feels harder as you get older, and more importantly, the specific changes you need to make to start seeing real results again. Now, let's jump in. Number 1, you've been training less instead of more. One of the biggest mistakes men over 40 make is cutting back their training because they're afraid of overdoing it. Yes, recovery slows down. Yes, your joints need more care, but pulling back too much can stall your progress. In fact, research shows that older lifters often need more volume, not less, to trigger the same muscle growth as younger lifters. In one study, researchers had both younger and older men perform leg exercises, first doing 3 sets, then repeating the workout on a separate occasion with 6 sets, literally doubling the volume. After each session, they measured muscle protein synthesis, which is your body's process of building new muscle. For the younger men, doubling their sets only resulted in a 20% increase in muscle protein synthesis. For the older men, however, doubling their sets increased muscle protein synthesis by over 100%. This isn't to say you should double your training volume, but rather that gradually increasing the number of sets you're doing will yield far better results than doing less. But it isn't just about volume, it's also about effort. In other words, how hard you push each set. This is important because the harder you push a set, the more motor units you recruit, especially the larger growth-prone fibers, which is what drives muscle growth. In one meta-analysis, researchers looked at multiple studies comparing 2 groups. One trained to failure and the other stopped about 1 to 3 reps short. When they measured the results, both groups built the same amount of muscle and strength. But here's the key difference. The failure group typically experienced more fatigue and needed longer recovery. And as you get older, that extra fatigue can start working against you, limiting how often you can train and how much total work you can handle each week. So, while you don't need to push sets to failure, you do need to push them close to failure to maximize growth. Number 2, your testosterone is on the decline. Testosterone is your main muscle-building hormone. It powers protein synthesis, drives strength, speeds up recovery, and keeps your workouts feeling purposeful. Around the age of 30, testosterone levels naturally decline about 1% per year. And research shows men with low testosterone experience significantly reduced muscle protein synthesis after training. In other words, even if you're lifting close to failure, your body won't respond like it used to. But here's the problem. The decline is gradual, and oftentimes we don't even realize our testosterone is dropping. That's why getting tested is critical. A simple blood test gives you clear insight into where your testosterone levels stand beyond guesswork and assumptions. And even if you're in the normal range, anywhere from 300 to 1000 nanograms per deciliter, you could be at a level that isn't optimal for you. Some men, for example, feel strong and focused at 400, while others struggle with low energy and poor recovery until they're well above 700. Without knowing your exact levels, you might be operating far below your personal ideal and missing opportunities to optimize your muscle growth and overall health. And remember, what gets measured gets managed, so the simple act of getting your testosterone levels checked makes you far more likely to take the steps needed to improve them. Number 3, you're not making sleep a priority. Sleep is usually the first thing we sacrifice when life gets hectic. But poor sleep doesn't just make you groggy, it wrecks your hormones. In one study, researchers took a group of healthy young men and tracked their testosterone levels under 2 conditions. First, they allowed the men to sleep 10 hours per night for 8 nights. Then, in a separate phase, the men were restricted to just 5 hours of sleep per night for another 8 nights. After just 1 week of sleep restriction, testosterone levels dropped by 10 to 15%. That's the equivalent of aging 10 to 15 years. So even in young, healthy men, cutting sleep for just a few days caused a sharp drop in testosterone. And since testosterone plays a huge role in muscle growth and recovery, this shows how damaging poor sleep can be, especially if it becomes a pattern. Not only that, but one meta-analysis revealed that lack of sleep reduces max strength, endurance, and power. In other words, poor sleep will result in less muscle growth. So, make sleep a priority and aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. Number 4, you're not eating enough protein. As we get older, our bodies don't respond to protein as efficiently as it used to. Research states that there is a lower post-meal protein synthesis rate for older adults, meaning that older individuals are not as effective in absorbing and using protein for anabolic processes. This is due to anabolic resistance, a well-documented decline in the body's ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Thankfully, the solution is simple. Eat more protein per meal. You see, when we were younger, 20 grams of protein was enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis maximally. After 40, we might need close to double the amount to experience the same result. In a randomized control trial, for example, older men were given 10, 20, or 35 grams of whey protein. The group that consumed 35 grams saw significantly more amino acid absorption and higher muscle protein synthesis rates. In another study, researchers had older men, average age of 66, perform a resistance training session, then consume either 0, 15, 30, or 45 grams of protein. They found that muscle protein synthesis increased in a dose-dependent manner. In other words, more protein equaled more muscle growth. That said, the biggest jump occurred between 15 and 30 grams, and going from 30 to 45 grams didn't make a huge difference. So, if you're a man over 40, aim for about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal to maximize this anabolic response. Number 5, you take supplements for granted. As you get older, your body's ability to absorb and use certain vitamins and minerals declines. And while these deficiencies don't always show up right away, they can quietly interfere with your recovery and performance, which in turn also affects your ability to build muscle over time. This is where supplements can play a practical role. Take creatine, for example. It's one of the most researched and effective supplements for both increasing strength and supporting muscle growth, and has been shown to improve training performance. See, while you can get creatine from food, you'd have to eat around 3 to 5 pounds of red meat every day just to hit the recommended 3 to 5 grams for muscle building. That's why supplementing is a much easier and more practical option. Next is vitamin D. Around 35 to 50% of men are either deficient or insufficient. After 40, that number climbs to around 60% and keeps rising with age. This matters because a vitamin D deficiency can result in lower testosterone, weaker muscles, slower recovery, more fatigue, and higher risk of injuries. One 2020 study found that vitamin D enhances muscle protein synthesis and improves both aerobic and anaerobic performance by enhancing ATP production. In other words, having adequate levels led to better overall sports performance, thus better and more effective training sessions. For best results, I recommend supplementing with about 5,000 IU daily. And lastly, we have magnesium. Some studies on men over 40 to 50 estimate up to 50% or more have suboptimal magnesium levels, affecting recovery, sleep, and muscle function. Magnesium also plays a key role in reducing cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. High cortisol levels not only contribute to stress and anxiety, but also actively work against testosterone. By keeping your cortisol levels in check, magnesium helps maintain maintain an optimal hormonal balance, supporting better mood stability, recovery, and energy levels. For best results, aim for 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium daily. And remember, supplements won't replace a solid diet, but they can help fill the gaps, especially when your body isn't as efficient as it used to be. Incorporating a smart supplement routine can support better training results and overall health as you age. And number 6, you lack consistency. In one study, researchers examined 40 masters athletes aged 40 to 81 who trained 4 to 5 times per week. They measured their muscle mass and strength to see how aging affected these factors in individuals who maintained a high level of physical activity. They found that despite aging, these athletes did not experience significant declines in muscle mass or strength. To put it simply, consistent exercise can help preserve muscle mass and strength as we age. And if you need a program you can follow to help you do that, then grab a free copy of my latest program, Mass 40. This is a 6-week training guide specifically created for men over 40 who want to take their physique to the next level, and right now you can grab a copy completely free. Just click the link in the description, enter your name and email, and you'll get instant access. And if you don't want to give me your email, then watch my video on the scientifically perfect workout for men over 40, where I break down all the details of the program right here on YouTube. To check it out, click the link on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.